Welcome back to another episode of Out of Touch with John, Mitchell, Dustin, and I guess most importantly you, because even though all three of us would talk to a wall if we absolutely had to, and I guess that's, that's what we're built for while we do this in a way, we prefer talking to actual human beings. So we appreciate you joining us once again for another episode of the Out of Touch podcast. So welcome in, Dustin and Mitchell. Happy end of May. Happy end of Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, I'm happy to be back. It was a long Memorial Day weekend. As I get older, it gets less and less eventful.
Yeah.
Didn't really do anything, but just feels like the year's already gone. I don't know. Like we're almost halfway done.
We are. I would say my Memorial Day is just as, I don't know if busy is the right word. There's the same amount of activities. It's just me going to fewer and fewer places to do those activities.
It's fair.
What a way for all of us to honor our troops just by doing absolutely nothing and taking an extra day off of work, right?
Yeah. That's what shout out to them working really, really hard, putting their life on the line for me to play video games for 10 hours.
You've got a new looking setup, at least a different direction of your setup, Mitchell.
Yeah, that was a great segue. The desk had to turn around so you can see how not put together we still are. But I had to do this because the Wi-Fi was stuttering when I was playing video games. So I am now corded to the modem, to the router, whatever it is. So we should have no issues. I'm zooming, baby.
It looks pretty good. It looks like, I mentioned this before the show started, you kind of look like you're just chilling in a garage, even though I know that's not what it is now. It just kind of gives off that garage vibe.
Yeah, semi-insult. This is inside my house, but,
It gives off man cave vibe is what I was going to say.
I think everybody should have a cozy garage / man cave. I mean, I don't have one, but it'd be nice if I did.
Yeah, this place is going to be, there's a lot of potential in here. It's still in the 60s, probably. The interior of this house, I think we talked about this a little bit, but there's a lot of avenues that we can take to. I don't necessarily want to make it the most modern house ever, just because the street we live on. I don't know if you guys feel this way, but the street we live on feels very old. It feels like all the houses were built in the 30s or earlier, and they haven't really been renovated on the outside. Like there's no modern looking houses on the block. They all fit the same aesthetic. And I kind of want to keep some of that, definitely on the outside, but also on the inside. So it's a delicate balance because you obviously see all the new design, open floor plan, all of that. I don't have that. And I don't know if I want that. It's kind of unique in this little neighborhood in Indianapolis.
Do you know what's interesting to me is the way that things are cyclical? And because I see on I spend way too much time on Instagram, first of all, just going to throw that out there, watching videos. But they'll transform a room, and a lot of them are man caves, or they'll do it into a speakeasy, turn something just an ordinary back room into this really elegant looking, and there's exposed brick, and it looks like 1910s, 1920s. But people in the 50s and 60s were trying to do their own thing and get away from that. Yep. And now we want to go back to exposed brick and that. And it just makes me wonder, are we ever going to go back to where people want wood paneling?
Well,
I don't know.
That's where I'm at. That is what I'm sitting in currently. So maybe I just hold tight for a year, and maybe this will be the new hit thing with.
It is interesting. I've said the same thing about music and rock music specifically. I feel like there was a point maybe 10 years ago or so where a lot of music was kind of stealing from hip hop, and there was a lot of electronics and stuff in rock songs and everything. Whereas nowadays, the more popular, newer groups, and I say popular with an asterisk because rock music will never, at least I don't think, will never reach what it was back in the 80s and 70s, that kind of stuff. But the newer style rock groups from the 2020s, like Greta Van Fleet and Dirty Honey and that kind of stuff, they've gone back to that roots style, like Led Zeppelin and Aerosmith, that era of rock music that you know, it's 40 or 50 years old at this point.
Here's why I think you're wrong on this, John.
Okay.
Because what tends to happen is like through these different eras, there's a phase where kids want to rebel against their parents, so they cling on to something new. And I've seen
That's
this with
true.
music, and I've seen it with like something as dumb as alcohol. So like bourbon and whiskey was really popular early on. And then there was an era where like kids didn't want to drink that anymore because that was what the old people drank, was what their parents drank. So there was a switch to like tequila and vodka. So then there was like a mass production of those alcohols. And now you're starting to see it cycle again to where people are starting to drink bourbon again and whiskey. And it's kind of, I think that's going to happen in music. So I don't know, like if you think that the 70s, 80s, whatever, rock was the greatest era of rock music, I'm not going to disagree with you. But I do think there will be a time when it's really, really popular again, because it'll be the thing to do will be to quote unquote rebel and listen to rock music instead of pop or country or whatever it is.
Let me be more clear though. I don't think, at least for me, it's not my favorite era of rock music. I was more so saying it was the most, like it was at the height of its popularity back in that era is kind of what I was trying to say. My favorite era is the 2000s, you know, the late grunge, new metal style era, which it can be kind of divisive. That includes bands that, you know, are like Nickelback and Creed and Korn and Limp Bizkit, that kind of stuff. And, you know, it's not everybody's cup of tea. But I will say, you mentioned Cycles, and we'll get off music, I promise. It's kind of popular. It's kind of cool to like Creed again and Nickelback. And I don't think that's far from the truth.
I haven't seen it. I haven't felt that. But
okay.
I think we've talked about this too. I'm very simple with my music. I like pretty much the same sound in a country song or a hip hop song. And that's pretty much it. And then anything else, if it's happy and makes me feel good, that's the only thing I listen to. Like, I don't really care about deep lyrics or amazing guitar riffs. I want it to sound good to my ears and make me feel good while I'm listening, because it's all background stuff to me. So I can't really.
You're just a simple man.
Yeah, I can't really add anything to this conversation. So take it.
Well, I will add something. This is just a very specific, because I went to a concert one time, and I think this holds up. And I think I've mentioned that I went to this concert before. Probably 6 or 8 years ago now, I went to a Jimmy Buffett concert. And I'm not sure that it's true, but what it felt like was you were either like 65 or 25. Like there was no in between. Like there weren't, I'm sure there were some people that were like in their 30s, 40s, 50s, but it was like two ends of the spectrum. Like it was like people who had been diehard Jimmy Buffett fans forever, or people that like listened to their listened to it when their grandparents or their parents were listening to it. It was a very interesting dynamic. So I could believe that, like, in the sense that when you're in like high school, because that's when elementary school and high school is kind of when those bands were popular for me, not for you, because I'm much older than you, John. Not wiser, just older. But like people, it was like an embarrassing thing to like those bands. So now that they're like my age, they're probably thinking like, oh, I don't care what anybody else says. I'm going to go back and listen to this Nickelback because I didn't get to enjoy it as much as I wanted to in high school. So maybe
I saw somebody say that living your 20s is just doing everything you like to do in your teens. It's just not embarrassing anymore.
100%. I was just thinking about All American Rejects as we were talking about this. You are not allowed to like them, and they have some hits that everyone, and now that we are in our 20s, one of their songs come on, and everyone knows the songs. Everyone in our teens was just listening to them secretly.
So basically everything in high school is a lie, is what we're learning.
Yes, everyone's like, oh, you like them? Yeah, it's all that. And then that comes on, and everyone in the bar sings it. The song Gives You Hell is the one that pops in my head.
That's right. When you see my face, hope it gives you hell. Hope it gives you hell. And that's, I remember too being a kid, and I'm like, oh, I've got to be clean with it. I've got to say gives you HE double hockey sticks, or just gives you H. And it's super cheesy and corny because you're in second or third grade and you think you've got to be all nice and
different experience for me. I was in high school when that came out.
Yeah, exactly. We're all 5-6 years apart from each other.
Yeah, I mean, I was in college. I was graduating college when it came out.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
When you put it in that perspective, it seems like we were so far off, because really the different phases of childhood are much shorter, I guess, little experiences than an entire decade of your 20s, your 30s. Because being in elementary school versus high school and college, those are way different experiences, obviously.
Yeah.
I'm actually getting to see that up close and personal, and I'm reminded of it. And it's a good time because obviously our daughter is coming in like a month. So it's good to be reminded. But I'm doing that. I don't know if we've even talked about this. I'm doing that training on the South Side, like sports performance stuff with Nick Stoner. And we've got a vast array of ages, abilities, outgoingness. That's not a word. Extrovert versus introvert. And like seeing how different the fourth graders are from even the sixth graders who are way different than the eighth graders and then the high school kids. And it's really not that long. And it's just interesting. You have to talk to them differently. They talk differently to each other. It's just
It's crazy.
I hadn't been exposed to that in a long time. And I think that because, and this is going to be old man yelling at clouds, but because they're exposed to so much so early because of Twitter and Instagram and TikTok and all this, I felt like when I was in sixth grade, I was like just learning about curse words and girls and stuff. And these kids, you've got, and I had these kids too in fourth grade. They would say they had 10 girlfriends or whatever, but these kids, they need to relax. That's all I'm saying. It's just, it's a different time. Well, and then to hear how different, like the fourth graders are immature about it. The sixth graders have been exposed, and it's just they're so different and they change week to week.
Well, I would say, so here's a little story. I don't know if it's a story or just reality was, I think there's just less parental control because on what your kids can see, because I vividly remember in like whatever grade it was, 4th, 5th, 6th, whatever year she came out with the song, Jennifer Lopez had like one of her first hits. And I remember like sprinting off the bus to get home to watch MTV to be able to see that video.
Yeah, it's their access is at their fingertips immediately.
Yeah. So I had to actually, I had to work for it.
Yes. It was hard
to turn on the television and find out what channel MTV was before parents got home.
Or new CDs. You had to find a way to get the parental advisory CDs, and you felt so dangerous getting them.
Yes.
And now they're just in every TikTok and cursing up a storm. I remember the song and this is so old man yell at clouds, this segment. I just love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. This is like, it's not the first time I've done this. I've started to notice myself doing it more and more like those dang kids. And I'm just 30. Like I'm not even old yet, but I'm starting to do it more and more and more. But the first parental advisory song I remember that I was really like sneaking to listen to was Ridin' by Chameleonaire. You see me riding dirty? Yeah. And I had that song on repeat. I got my first iPod. I had that. And then another song by Kenny Chesney. I had those two songs because they were 99 cents and I had to buy them and I had no money. So I bought those two songs on iTunes and then I installed FrostWire and absolutely obliterated my parents' computer.
I remember my parents were pretty, at least in the young stages of me having an MP3 player / iPod, that kind of thing.
What'd you have? What was your first MP3?
I don't remember what brand it was, but it wasn't like any of the iPod brands.
Was it a Zune?
Brands.
You look like a Zune guy.
It was this little rectangular looking. It might have been Sony. I have no clue honestly.
Dude,
what brand it was.
I bet it was a Zune.
I think my first MP3 was a Zune.
But mine was black, and there was a little cap on it that you could take off, and you would just plug the USB into the laptop or computer, and that's how you would download the songs onto it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is that called a Zune? Now I'm gonna look this up and see if I can find a photo of
it. The new Zunes are pretty sick. Still a thing.
Is it Zune?
Yeah.
I would have never remembered what the name of it was until he said that, but I think that's what I had.
These look like the old iPod Nanos. Mine didn't
this is Zune at the company. Zune itself was discontinued in 2012.
Okay.
Why did they fail? They did not do enough research.
Because what happened was Apple probably obliterated the entire market And once iPod Touch was a thing, I feel like, and then the iPhone, that was it for all MP3 players.
And then we got stuck with a random U2 album.
Oh yeah, the time that
remember
U2 they cloud dropped whatever their new album was onto everybody who had an iPhone. You
It's
automatically
still on my
had
phone,
the album
John.
in your library. Could you not remove it?
No, I've tried multiple times. It just keeps reappearing. So I'm stuck with this stupid U2 album for the rest of my life.
And U2 is, I mean, I'm not a fan of U2 necessarily, but they're a fairly popular group. So I don't know why they felt the need to just airdrop an album into people's libraries.
I'm kind of surprised that they haven't done this with Taylor Swift or something. I don't know. But that would take away from her money, so maybe not.
Yeah,
but
and Taylor Swift, I mean, to be fair, doesn't need to do anything like that. She has her population wrapped around her fingertips.
But neither did U2. They were a worldwide hit band.
Yeah.
Bono's one of the most famous people ever.
Did they go away and then come back? Because I feel like the old U2 stuff I don't want to say I really like, but I thought it was good. And then the new stuff, I was like, well, this is terrible and I don't want to listen to it ever again. But now I'm stuck with that music.
I don't know.
So U2, obviously they were most famous for the Joshua Tree. And I'm trying to see if did I cut somebody off? Oh, sorry. I went into a new tab and I was worried that I cut somebody off.
No,
I'm trying to figure out what the song was or what the album was that got automatically put on. Oh, was it No Line on the Horizon? Does that sound familiar?
Hold on. Let me go through my music songs and I will tell you.
I didn't listen to a single one of them. That marketing tactic did not work for me.
The album cover looks familiar because I remember this.
I listened to them, but they weren't any good. I didn't think.
You know what?
This was released in 2009, though, so I'm not sure if that would have fit the timeline of when.
Here's an underrated childhood memory. Go ahead.
What's it called? Songs of the Innocents from 2014. Okay. To everybody out there, we were recording this on May 28th, 2020.
Aliens that intercept this message in the year 3000. This has been on here for 10 years.
Somebody's going to discover my iPod, my specific iPod, in like 300 years and be like, huh, there's a YouTube thing from 2014 still on his phone.
You're still using an iPod, not your iPhone?
No, iPhone. I'm sorry.
Oh,
sorry. There was an old man.
We need to talk about this. That was going to be unbelievable. This is something that I think is not talked about enough and has done a lot of songs really dirty that the artists didn't think about. How risky it was to have the first letter of your song title start with an A. Because when you would play it in your car, that song would be the first song to play every time.
Yep.
And I have a couple songs that I loved that are just gone. I had to delete them because you can't listen to them anymore because it's the first song you hear. Same thing happens. I used to wake up because I wanted to wake up happy in the morning. So I used Earth, Wind & Fire September.
Oh,
isn't that funny how people think that picking just the most upbeat song is your alarm?
Hate that song.
It makes you think that you will love waking up, but in reality, you're just going to hate the song instead.
If you played that song right now, I'd get chills and I would get paralyzed. Probably. I just can't.
I just love the memes with that song where it's like whenever it says "Do you remember?" It's like the little flute that's played way off tune. Do you know what I'm talking about? Those are hilarious. I love those.
Yeah, I haven't thought about that in a long time. There's a song by Rihanna that I'll never remember what it's called, but it was the first song that would play, and I used to like the song. She hasn't come out with music in a long time. She has some bangers.
She does.
I'm trying to see if I could figure out which of her songs start with the letter A.
I can't remember.
I'm gonna look them up.
One thing I remember seeing too was the A-Team by Ed Sheeran. Someone posted a meme like, "Oh, I can't stand this song anymore because of the exact reason that you're referring to."
Talk about bangers. I mean, I think that's a pretty depressing song, but I mean, I know the words to it.
Yeah. Speaking of depressing, this is kind of a hard left turn.
Oh boy,
this has to be an A song.
Really.
It may not even be Rihanna now that I'm thinking about it. Maybe like Beyonce or something. It's something that started with an A, and it was kind of like the R&B, and it was a female genre. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know exactly who it was, but it would play because you would plug your phone into the car, and it would just automatically start playing your iTunes. Even when I had Spotify, it would play iTunes before iTunes was discontinued, and you just wanted to, gah. You had to delete it, and then it goes to the next song, and you hate that song just as much, so you delete that one too. It's a never-ending cycle, and eventually you're just on the last song, and then you have no more songs.
That's true. That's true.
Speaking of depressing, I don't know if
What's
the
your
segue
depressing?
even works anymore, but a beloved broadcaster of mine, not that I knew him personally, obviously passed away on Monday, Mr. Bill Walton, the hippie, the world-renowned NBA player, UCLA Bruin. But to me, he will always be known as the guy who did the Maui Invitational games, at least the Maui Invitational games that were less contingent, the ones that, if your team already lost and you had nothing to play for, you more than likely were going to get Bill Walton as your color commentator for the rest of the tournament. And there's a contingent of people that hated that, or if you're, I would say, in the minority like me, you enjoyed all of that. And I think Bill Walton was probably one of the funniest and just off the wall broadcasters that has ever existed. And well, more than likely, you couldn't replicate a broadcast that Bill Walton was on if you tried to, because he was so utterly himself.
Yeah.
That, and I might play one thing here in a minute, and then I'll let you all say something before I even do that. But I think the best quality about him is he just wasn't afraid to just be. He wasn't afraid to just be himself. There's no other way to say it other than that. So kudos to Bill Walton, and may he rest in peace.
Yeah, I think so. I always held this belief that about Bill Walton, and I'll say two things. Number one was I always thought that he was, if your team wasn't playing, he was the best color analyst. You could tune in, you were going to watch basketball, and you were going to have a good time. But if your team was playing, you just didn't want to deal with the nonsense, so you put it on mute. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think because then you're trying to draw in a crowd of other people that just want to watch basketball, and they're getting I don't know if sideshow is the right word, but they're getting additional entertainment. The second thing was, and I think this personified him so well, was that time, I don't remember what year it was, maybe like 2016 or 17 or something, when he just showed up to that ESPN like college football playoff national championship watch party with like Jay Billis and a bunch of other people, dressed as Uncle Sam, and had no idea who was even playing in the championship game, didn't know who any of the players were, but he was just like, I'm just happy to be here. And like wanted to make people laugh, wanted to have a good time, said something about being high right now. I mean, I did love that guy.
I think it's good that I went last because I've been pretty vocal. I
think I was worried to bring it up because I think I know where you're going.
Yeah. I didn't follow him closely enough for the rest of the antics. I don't watch basketball like that. I just don't. I watch if I have a team that I like. So it's exactly what Dustin was saying. He was extremely annoying. And that is like that's a horrible, horrible thing to say now. It's a long battle.
It's okay though.
He fought. He was just really annoying to me, but I mean, yeah, he was himself. And I bet if you're in the room with him outside of watching a team that I want to win, I bet he's a blast. So I'm skewed because the only games that I watch are the games that I care about. And the best color commentators are the guys like Robbie Hummel that add true basketball value. And when they aren't adding true basketball value, they don't speak. I'm here to watch the game. So that's
whenever
my
and
ideal
this,
position.
I don't know how many experiences I actually had of him watching a team that I root for, obviously specifically referring to Indiana. But I do know that when Indiana was most recently in the Maui Invitational, they had him at least once.
Yes.
And I know they didn't win at least the one game that I'm picturing. I think they played UNLV or something like that. And they weren't doing well. And I see a lot of people, like you all were saying, if you're pissed off about how your team is performing, why the lack of knowledge by the color commentator would.
Sure.
And I think that's what's so frustrating. He had more knowledge than anyone in the gym about basketball.
True.
He had so much. He's an 11-time champion or whatever. Like, he's won a zillion titles. And
I
he
found
would
it
talk
easier
about
to swallow the
aliens.
loss when he was going off the rails, though. That was just me. I just was enjoying the antics.
Yeah,
Mitchell and John would have fought if they were in the same
dude,
room watching
I'm
the
just
game.
terrible. I'm the worst loser there ever was. The world is crashing whenever Indiana's football team. I mean, I don't. What, they win 2 games last year?
3, maybe 4. I don't remember.
It was too many. They should have won 0. That's the quality that they had. And I still, when they I've watched this 10 times. It's the definition of insanity. Waking up, doing my stupid thing, excited for the game, and they lose by a zillion to Rutgers. And I'm like, why? I can't believe this. Yes, you can believe this. You've watched this already. So I'm just a horrible, horrible loser. So when I'm losing, I just want to lose. I don't want someone to try to make me feel better by cracking jokes. I don't need that. I want to be a loser. I'm a loser for watching this. I'm a loser for the next day. Don't do anything but call me a loser. One of my favorite, and Laura was just talking about, or it was Laura and I think somebody else. They were talking about, it was the Pacers on Friday night after they lost. And they're asking me, like, I'm on Twitter. And they're like, why are you on Twitter? It's like, I just want to be miserable with my friends. Don't talk to me. Because I'll just search like random Pacers players. I'll search Pacers Celtics and just look at all the sad, sad fans. Because that's all I am. I'm a sad, miserable fan. When I'm losing, I just want to be sad. And so I think I'm definitely in the minority and probably in the wrong for not being able to allow some happiness to seep back in. I'm just
I wouldn't say you're in the
full-
minority. Now, I
don't-
honestly maybe wouldn't say you're in the wrong. I mean, you have the right to your own feelings and however you want to express them. So
yeah, I'm definitely in the camp of I care about like so few things. And when they lose, which we do a lot, I just want to bask in the loserness. It just is, it's a comforting place for me. It really is. Which is sad to say. That's where we've come in 20 years of no success, really, in any sport or team that I cheer for. None. Laura and I, this is a little, you guys will appreciate this. This is how much of a losing streak I'm on. The Colorado, I don't watch hockey. The Colorado Avalanche won the NHL. So Laura and I decided we were going to be Colorado Avalanche fans. And then the next year they missed the playoffs. Like, and it's all these people in Colorado that are diehard fans, cheer for them forever, have no idea that it's just 2 idiots in Indiana that caused all of it. So that's my relationships to sports, and that's the way I want it to stay.
Can I insert something?
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with anything we were just talking about, but the fact that you brought up the Colorado Avalanche and that they were just miserable this year reminded me. Miles Turner had never been out of the first round of any tournament in his entire life.
That is loser, dude.
I mean, you talk about bad luck. He said that after, and I was like, that can't be right. He's like, in high school, I lost in the first round. In the NCAA tournament, I lost in the first round. We got beat in the first round a couple of times in the NBA. I'm like, dear God, like that's like Joe Thomas never making the playoffs in his 174 seasons with the Browns and making the Pro Bowl every single. Could you imagine being a Pro Bowl, one of the best offensive linemen of all time? You never made not one playoff game. You're just like, yeah, I played like 30 years in the NFL. I have no idea what the playoffs are like.
Yeah, I made $1 zillion. What was your favorite game? One of the regular season ones. I don't know.
we played the Bengals. They got pretty intense in there.
Yeah, first week of the season. Every year.
what's crazy is Miles Turner didn't have to say that. And no one would have, I don't say nobody, but majority of people would have never known that fact about him.
I think it makes it more real. I became much more endeared to Miles Turner in this playoff run than I have been in his entire tenure. He plays like he loves where he's at. And whether he does or he doesn't, he acts like he does. And I thought he was vulnerable. He was good in his interviews. And when you say something like that, that's a big hump to get over. That's borderline Mitchell Page fandom loser talk. Like that is sad. And I don't know how you even hold it together after you win the first series. I just
Because
be
then, yeah, that's
bawling
his
my
first
eyes out.
time, and he's in his.
did?
How is Miles Turner? He's in his. He's not in his 30s yet, is he?
He's got to
No.
be 31 or 32,
No
maybe, because
shot.
I think
Wow.
they got him in 2014 is when they drafted. So maybe he's 29 or 30 because I think he spent 1 year at Texas. But I think he did say, I
He's
think after the
28.
Milwaukee's, what's that?
He's only 28.
Okay, so he must have been 18 or 19. But I think he did say after they beat Milwaukee that he got emotional or like was on the verge of getting emotional. He did say something along those lines, like he was having trouble keeping it together after they won that first series.
Wow. See, and I
Like,
didn't
all
think
you
it was
know is
emotional. I
getting to
thought
the
maybe he
first
was
round and
joking about
losing.
it.
What's that?
I thought initially when you mentioned it, I thought he was joking about it. I didn't realize that he was like
No, he was.
super
Yeah, he
emotional
was
about
dead
it.
serious.
Okay.
This is something that's interesting. Speaking of Miles Turner, this is a lie that's going around. I just looked him up to look how old he is. I've had multiple people independently tell me that Miles Turner never played AAU basketball in high school, and he played in the YMCA league, and then he grew to 7 feet. That's just not true.
Why would anybody? I've never heard that, but where would that come from?
I have no idea. This is a rumor that is going around Indianapolis that I have heard from different people in different friend groups that have this thinking that he just played in the Y. Like, no problem playing in the Y, but you're probably not going to the University of Texas from the YMCA. You might go there as a student, get great grades. They teach you great fundamentals about life.
You can have a good meal.
Yeah, but not necessarily
else do they say?
fundamentals of playing in the post in the YMCA.
It's fun to stay there.
That's
It's also true.
It is fun to stay there. That's terrible.
Whenever I hear a story like that and it turns out to be false and it's that good where I'm like, oh, I could see that being believable, even though maybe it's really not. I just imagine that the person that came up with that story is like their dream is to one day be like at a random bar in Florida and hear that same story that they started like 5 years ago and be like, dude, that's not even close to being true.
It's the biggest game of
but I've made it.
telephone ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this
Like,
dude had 60 offers. He narrowed his list to Texas, Kansas, Duke, Arizona, Kentucky, Ohio State, and Oklahoma State. You think that guy was just dribbling it at the Y?
Hooping it up at the YMCA.
Yeah. Mike Krzyzewski going to the Arthur B. Jordan YMCA on 86th Street? I don't think so.
Could you imagine, like, you see a random college basketball coach walk into a YMCA with Miles freaking Turner playing against guys me and Mitchell.
I was gonna say, I'm open. He's 6'11". They got a 5'6" guy in the post.
Yeah, man, I got 37 assists today. I just passed it to Miles every time.
Yeah. Hey, coach, check my stats too, baby. Yeah. I mean, it's so stupid that I believed it. I believed it until this moment. I had never looked it up. It's so crazy that why would they lie about that?
Right.
But when you think about it, that's just definitely a lie.
I hope that whoever started that rumor gets their, has their moment. And in 10 years, when they're at a bar in Florida, here's that same story.
What's a rumor we can start about you, Mitchell, or Dustin?
I don't know. He played in the FIBA America's U18 national Olympics, basically. He represented the United States as an 18-year-old playing at the Y. This is just come on. What are we even talking about? Whatever. What's a rumor we can start about me?
Or Dustin or me?
I'm 16.
That would be believable enough that maybe 10 years down the road, if we revisited it.
My kids will never have Google, and I'm gonna hang my jersey from the NFL. I'm gonna tell them I was the MVP of the league.
How long do you think you can get away with that?
Not very long. Not very long. But we're gonna try it.
I don't know. My dad used to, every year when the NFL draft would come on, he'd call the house phone from another phone and pretend to be the GM of the Green Bay Packers and say he got drafted as the tight end. And we believed him for a long time.
I like that.
So you might be able to get away with it.
That's the most unbelievable thing I've ever heard. That is so awesome.
So Nick Coffey, the guy you went back and forth with on Twitter, Nick or Mitchell. I don't know. You didn't go back and forth with him, but he responded to your tweet about the Pacers. The guy I work with in the afternoons. Mm-hmm. He used to lie to his kids about the county fair being Disney World because he wanted them to think that, instead of telling them that instead of having them say, hey, let's go to Disney World, why not just convince my kids that where we're at right now is actually Disney World.
I heard a great one about this. I saw it on Twitter or something. This guy, he has 10-year-old kids, and he's been telling them since they started school that if they're good, they don't have to go to school the last 2 days of the week. But he said it's a 7-day school week. So if they're good Monday through Friday, they don't have to go to school on Saturday and Sunday.
I love it.
And I think that's
pretty
genius. And they're like, were we good enough, Dad? And every week he gets to be like, yep, you were good enough. No school.
Although that's
I'm trying to think when you
what
would...
if they're not?
Yeah. I mean, it's a great bargaining tool, a great threat. But if they misbehave and you got to be like, oh, now you got to go to school, you get outed pretty quick.
Yeah. Like
that one wouldn't last very long, I feel like.
Punches another kid in the face, and they're like, "Was I good enough?" Yeah, I'm just gonna keep punching people in the face because this is allowed. And I can still get the last 2 days off.
Yeah, I can do literally anything. I'm gonna get those 2 days off no matter what.
What were some? So this is a topic I've had on our list for a while, and I wasn't planning on getting in it today. Maybe we'll just scratch the surface like we just did. But what are some lies that we were told as kids that maybe we believed? And I'm not talking about like the holiday mascots, that kind of thing. I'm just talking about things that maybe when we were 5, 6, even up to 7 or 8 years old. I don't know. I don't have examples specifically with me at the moment. Maybe if you guys have some, it'll jog my memory a bit. But do you guys have any recollection of some lies that you were told as a kid that you believed?
I have a really embarrassing one because I was way too old to believe this, but my dad would lie to me all the time to get a laugh. And I don't know, hopefully I can explain this well enough. So now it's pretty commonplace for the steering wheel of a car to have like a search button for the radio or the volume control or whatever it might be, right? But my dad, I don't know if he had a rental car or a work truck or whatever, but it was like right at the first of the time that stuff started happening, like where you'd have those kind of controls on the steering wheel. I think I was like 14, like in high school. And I remember my dad like being like, watch this. I got this new feature on this truck where all I have to do is snap my fingers and point to the radio and it'll change the volume or change the radio station. And he would do different things. He's like, yeah, you got to snap or you got to clap. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. I mean, I believe this for 2 weeks.
I like that. That's creative too.
Your dad sounds like the man.
And then
just
eventually he was
jokes.
I think eventually he got so embarrassed that his 14-year-old son believed this.
Yeah, this is gone.
He was like, I can't have my idiot son go around telling people at school that I have this magic truck. This was just me controlling it on the steering wheel. But I mean, I wasn't quite 14, but I was way too old to actually be believing that was happening.
That is so good. Have you ever seen the video of I don't remember anything either. This may be a better question for our parents, John. I bet there's still some lies that, Mom, if you're listening to this, call in, confess.
There you go.
I like this.
Wouldn't it be funny if they told us something that none of us realized we were being lied to about until now?
Yeah, I'm gonna be mad.
This is
too.
Go ahead.
This was less embarrassing because less embarrassing because I was really little. But the song by Kansas, "Dust in the Wind,"
yeah,
that my mom and dad told me that was written about me. Because the words run together.
Dustin.
Yeah, Dustin the wind.
Yeah, and then I remember one time I said something to my mom, and she was really mad at me because I was 5 or 6 and probably being annoying. And she was just like, that song isn't about you, right? I mean, just devastated at that thought.
Yeah. Wait, what?
That's pretty much what it was.
This doesn't qualify.
One of my dad's best friends was in a band, so I thought that he wrote the song.
I mean,
that's actually a good name for a band, though. Dust in the Wind. And I'm not even talking about the words, like Dust in the Wind. The name Dustin. I don't know. It sounds like a good indie band.
We have some good indie or some good band names off the top of your head. You come up with some good ones. I'm not creative enough. Were you guys like when you guys had to pick a team name? Were you the person that picked the name? I feel like you were.
I remember being, and this isn't a creative name at all. I remember playing rec league soccer, and this is elementary school age. And I remember thinking I was so cool for coming up with the name the Blue Bandits. We were just a navy blue, it was one of those leagues where everybody has the same jersey, but it's a different color, that kind of thing. And I was like, we're going to be the Blue Bandits. And I felt like I was the coolest kid on the team because I came up with the name. And it's the most generic thing. I mean, generic in retrospect, but when you're a kid, you're like, oh, man, I came up with the team name.
Kind of a sweet name, to be fair.
I'll take it.
Kind of a sweet name. I always come up with a name like the Farts or something.
Okay.
Something so unoriginal and stupid and immature. Like my brain it just doesn't operate like that. I don't know why. I can't come up with something random, funny, catchy. I'd be terrible in marketing.
Good thing. Do you have to be, I guess you don't have to be super creative when you're as a salesperson because you're just telling people the facts, right?
Well, you're telling a story. I can tell stories, but coming up with a slogan or something like a catchy jingle, I just don't got that.
Come up with a slogan right now for the podcast if you had to do it this moment.
We'll be here for a week. A week.
I'm usually okay.
Go ahead.
I'm usually okay if it includes dad jokes or stupid puns, but it might take me a minute.
Yeah, out of touch. I can't. I got nothing. I come up. Yeah. I'm not even gonna say what's in my head. I'm not.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're going straight to the gutter.
Yeah,
that's what we do sometimes in this podcast.
Yeah.
And now it's just how do we transition away from this?
Yeah, we've gotten a little awkward. What's next?
I was in flag football, and my coach named us the Purple Colts because we had purple shirts.
Nailed it, dude.
Hey, it's like the Blue Bandits.
We want to be the Colts.
Colts.
Purple Colts. Were you a good flag football player? I feel like you must have been pretty good.
I got called for a block in the back. I know that.
That's a funny thing to remember.
I don't think I played flag football and I played junior high football. I don't think I was a running back, and I don't think I ever scored a touchdown and wide receiver. So
I never played
that
football.
was my football career. I got called for 2 blocks in the back, both brought back touchdowns, and I think we lost one of the games. So
nice. There's a guy on my high school team, Danny Murray, and if you're listening, Danny, if you're listening, that'd be awesome. But he got 6 of my touchdowns called back my senior year. I would have led the state in touchdowns, and he would just
in all divisions.
He was one of those kids that was way super aggressive. And I'd be crossing the goal line, and he would spear a kid at the 40-yard line, just so far away, just for no reason. We played Park Tudor my senior year, first game. We were smoking them. I returned a punt for a touchdown. I'm already in the end zone celebrating, and he, blocked, quote-unquote, a kid 30 yards off the sideline, through their bench, over the water cooler, and just pile drives them. Had another touchdown that I was in the end. He called back 2 touchdowns in the same game. Kind of a funny story about that, though. They at halftime, their coach came over to our coach and just said, "No mas."
Wait, did they quit? Did they quit the game, or did they start a running clock in the second half?
They quit the game. We called the game at halftime.
Because of the score, or because of the?
They said their kids were getting hurt and they were out of water. It's Park Tudor. It's $80 million a year to go there. They probably had some reserve water.
They probably dumped it out because they were tired of getting their asses kicked. They were like, let's assume we don't have any more water.
It was 45-7, and we got 2 touchdowns called back. So it was going to be 100. We were on the sideline scheming. We were going to get 100. And their coach had to walk over to our sideline and tap our coach on the shoulder like a little kid. We don't want to play anymore.
Did your teams ever do anything when you were beating teams that bad where they kind of play jokes hey, let's put the kicker in at quarterback and just see what happens?
Oh, I got stories on stories about this. So
give us the best one.
I've got 2 that I'm going to tell you.
Okay, that's fine.
I played on a really good AAU basketball team growing up. We were all from the same school, and we just played together forever. We were called the Fieldhouse Hogs. hogs like a pig. And we had pink on our jerseys. We were white, black, and pink. And we were just a bunch of little dudes that played basketball the right way. And we would destroy teams. And there was this team called 15 Deep. And this is like a Tuesday night league. Like we have school in the morning. It's over at the field house in Fishers. They come in, they're doing all these drills pregame. They're doing the weave. They're doing all this. And we're shooting half-court shots. Like throwing the ball over the backboard. I'm pretty sure one kid was smoking a cigarette. Like that's how we were warming up for this. So we're winning 97-12 or something at the end of the game. And our big guy, Sean Heffern, who actually played at IU with me, football, he wanted to shoot 3-pointers. And so he gets the ball in front of their bench. They've got 10 guys on this bench. 10. And there's a little spot at the end of the bench, and he does a turnaround fadeaway in the corner right in front of their bench, makes it to get to 100, and sits on their bench. That was a problem. The meanest thing we ever did, we were playing in Cincinnati, and this was this current, I think it was the team, it was called MBA, like the business degree, Select. They were out of Cincinnati, and they're hosting the tournament. This is their tournament. And we went in there and just destroyed everyone. And this is in the championship game, I think. We were beating them so bad. We were sophomores in high school, and the coach had like a 12-year-old son, maybe even 8-year-old, like in elementary school. And we put him in the game. Yeah. I mean, I think 12 is way too old. I think he was like 6 or 7. This is a sophomore high school tournament. And we put him in.
And they just let him in? Like he was visibly younger than everybody.
We put him on the roster.
Okay.
And he had a jersey on that was 10 sizes too big. He's just a 7-year-old guarding these, and we're just like, whatever.
If you're the other team and you're super angry about
You're
the
ready to
way
fight.
that,
Yes.
yeah, ram them. I mean, not that you want to hurt the kid, but like if you want to get the other team in trouble for doing something like that, for just kind of making fun of you, like, hey, let's put this 7-year-old out here.
Oh, you're showing him up. You're big time.
I hate saying hurt him because it sounds terrible. You don't want the kid to do it, but I mean, I guess technically the kid's agreeing to be a part of it, right?
I think the parents should have fought the coach, like our coach.
For letting him be in the game.
It is a the kid didn't do it. The kid's 7. Like it's not.
He
his
has
fault.
no idea. He doesn't know any better.
I think as the opposing team's parents, you have to fight the coach. You have to team up, like forks and pitchforks and whatever.
Grab your torch and pitchforks. That's from, right?
Yes, that's exactly what I was trying to get to.
That was probably a horrible impression too.
But you have to go. You have to fight the coach. You have to light his car on fire or something. All that happened was we just took all the trophies, all the whatever the winners got, and just drove home with their 8-year-old in the game. I have so many stories of that high school stuff where we are just.
This is amazing because I remember I think it was a junior high tournament that we played in. I don't think it was the freshman year, but I think it was one of the years in junior high. We played in this tournament in Kokomo, Indiana. We were known for playing a 2-3 defense. Well, if you can't beat a 2-3 defense, the other teams will just hold the ball. So we were in a 2-3 zone, and every one of the parents on our team, like we were at an NBA game, we're just chanting boring. I mean, it's like echoing throughout the gym. The other team wouldn't do anything. And then like the parents were yelling at our coach. Our coach was turning around yelling at them more than he was coaching us. I mean, it was a
holding the ball at half court, I assume.
What's that?
They were just holding the ball at half court.
Yeah, they just held the ball and we wouldn't get out of the zone because they couldn't shoot. Like the only way they could beat us was off the dribble. So we just decided we were going to go zone. And they didn't like that. The game was like 18-12 or something. We ended up winning, but that was the only. So that happened. Our coach eventually got tossed from the game for yelling at the parents.
I love it.
I thought that there was another thing that happened at one point too, but I don't remember. Oh, I do know what happened. We were playing in the game. This was freshman year, but it wasn't JV. I wasn't good enough to be on JV. It was freshman year. And there was a kid going up for a layup. He had just stolen the ball, going up for a layup. And I got into him. I fouled him a little bit. This was in the first quarter. We both went to the ground. He got up in my face. I got up in his face. Whatever. Intense moment.
Dustin, tough guy.
We were at their, well, competitive Dustin's not a good person.
This is pre-kickboxing Dustin.
Yeah, imagine.
And and the problem was I was, not very big at the time, and I still had no fear, and that was not a good thing to have.
Same.
But I just remember we were at their home court, and all the parents, anytime I touched the ball, were booing me.
Oh, I've been there. It's the best feeling in the world.
It is. It was so fun. Like that was the only time I remember being that important to where people were actually booing me.
Yeah, like the most empowering thing in the world. We play. I can't even remember who we were playing, but every time I would touch the ball, they would chant "Hobbit" at me. It was awesome.
Hobbit. Is this in high school or
Yes.
college?
In high school, it was awesome. In basketball, basketball was so fun because you could get right up, like they were right on top of you. So I would spend half the game talking to their student section, saying whatever, reckless stuff.
This is pre-Twitter, mind you. This is where he cut his teeth at before Twitter.
Yeah,
100%.
John, when you are inbounding a basketball, I mean, you learn things about your family and your mom and everything.
Yeah,
everybody else,
and it's such a small town. Like,
and I never really did competitive basketball. I mean, you guys grew up in Indiana for high school. I mean, I grew up my younger years in Indiana, but high school basketball in Kentucky is not at all what it is in Indiana. I mean, people care about it, but it's a different level in Indiana from what I've
kind of been cool seen. In Indiana. At least it feels like this is funny how this show is cyclical because we're coming back to things being cyclical. I feel like when I was in high school, right when I was starting high school, there was a serious dip in attendance for high school basketball games, and it was like a problem. And I got into high school right as it started to turn. I won't say our semi-state games were sold out in the Seymour, Greencastle 8,000-seat gyms, but that was by the end of my time in high school, and you could start to see 75% capacity. And nowadays, like they are sold out, standing room only. Now that I'm back, I cannot wait to go watch some high school basketball this year, just because I think that how everybody talks about the glory days of single class basketball and it being the only thing in town when it was happening. You're not quite there because you do obviously still have classes, but there's just a revival of interest, and it's just a really fun atmosphere to be in. So maybe we'll have to arrange because you guys got to come see the Guerin Catholic Golden Eagles. They got some ballers, and it's a fun little gym. Come see where Mitchell knocked it.
I would have gone to Jeffersonville High School if I would have stayed in the area of Indiana that I grew up in.
Yeah.
And that gym alone, compared to any other gym I've been to in Kentucky, it's unreal.
I've never even been inside it, but I've driven by it. It is a mecca. It's huge.
And they used to have the quick little story, and we'll wrap this up. They used to have, and he may still be alive, I'm not too sure. They used to have a fan. He was a homeless guy, and they I don't remember his real name. They called him Cowboy. But he would go to every home game for Jeffersonville High School basketball, and he would just hang out, and people knew him as Cowboy. And that's all I know about him. And if you may know who I'm talking about if you're listening in from that area, but it's kind of cool how different fan bases, especially at the high school level, like every other part of the United States, nobody cares about this stuff. But at the high school level, people had fans like that.
It's the last time that you truly play for your friends, play in front of your friends. Like I went to the state school in Indiana, and I'm playing for the state, but not really, right? Like I'm playing for the guys on the team. That's about it.
Yeah.
But in high school, all my friends are in the stands. I can make a shot and look and see 30 guys that I play football with in the first 3 rows.
Yeah.
And there's just something that's just more intimate. You know everybody in the gym. You've been there a million times. You've watched kids. Like some of the kids that would come to the camps when I was a senior are now getting into high school. They're starting to play for the team. It's just you see the continuity, and it creates a much smaller, more close-knit environment. And I think there, for whatever reason, however many years ago, 10 years ago, that had kind of been lost. And it's cool to see it really come back full circle, because I think the state championship games even were, I mean, they play at Bankers Life or whatever it's called now, and you're never going to sell that place out unless you have somebody like Damon Bailey. But, I mean, it was pretty close. There's a bunch of people going down for that game that aren't fans of anybody, that just want to watch basketball.
And we haven't had a resurgence at my old school, but just to give, like, growing up, our team was really good. We won a state. We went undefeated a few seasons. I was never really good enough to ever play on the high school team, unfortunately. I tried, gave it a good run, but we had a lot of really good players. Some played in college, so give me a break.
Yeah.
But
I can just hear all the people talking trash about you right now.
Yeah, exactly. Wasn't even good enough to play in high school.
It's not like we're all in Napoleon Dynamite right now. Like I can throw a football over the mountains. That's
exactly.
The stories get grander and grander as we get older. Just wait. But we come back in 10 years, I'm going to tell you about how I 360 dunked on Gary Harris. It's just not even true. I can't even touch the net.
We had a gym size of like, I don't know, 2,800, 3,000, and the town was 1,500. And when I tell you it was full every Friday and Saturday night, it was full at like standing room only. And now from what I've heard, because I've got friends who teach there, coach there, no, it's nothing. Like they don't even pull out the second set of bleachers from what I'm told.
Wow.
So it's really disheartening. But I do think there's been, because you go to like, now you go to Kokomo, Brownsburg, Carmel, and some of those places, there is definitely a resurgence in the interest. It's just when I went back to my hometown, it was like, oh, okay, this is gonna be like the old days. No, it's like 45 people, but it used to be a lot of fun because the gyms were like. You guys have seen Hoosiers, I assume, right?
Yeah.
That's not really a question for Mitchell. It's more for John because he's younger and isn't from Indiana. But
Pizzo's my guy, dude.
I'm from Indiana. I'm just not from in the sense that you all have lived there pretty much your entire lives.
But like how compact those gyms are. That was our gym. It was just like there was a court and then just like a sea of bleachers. And it used to just be the coolest sight you'd ever see. And now to have that gone kind of sucks. But
did you ever go to Noblesville's gym, the Mill?
No, I don't think I've been to Noblesville.
This kills me to say because I hated them growing up. They were like for whatever reason, a rival that you just the same colors as Purdue. You just couldn't cheer for them. Their gym, it was that same kind of deal where, and I think a lot of gyms have this. You've got the court and then two massive sloping bleachers on either side of the long side of the court. And then on the baseline, you've got the hoops that hang from the ceiling, and you've got those walkways that are above. And then you've got little bleachers at the baselines that are right in front of the walkways. But for whatever reason at Noblesville, it just feels like it's kind of like Assembly Hall where there's two sloping sides and it feels like the sound just goes right on top of you. And I think that's the same kind of gym. They have a bunch of those around the state that I played in that are just awesome, awesome gyms. You know what's did you guys ever see the Anderson Wigwam? Did you ever see a game there?
Yes.
No.
I played in one of the last games there. I saw some pictures of that place. It's sad.
That was probably the best place to play a high school basketball game outside of Newcastle and maybe the Hatchet House in Washington.
Never been.
I've never been there either, but I do want to go to that place. I've heard.
Have you ever been to Newcastle? Now we're just look at this is
so like now we're just like we're just having a random conversation. People are like, what the hell is this? This isn't a podcast anymore.
Dude, if you're listening in Indiana, this is your stuff, man. This is what you live for. Just
everybody else is like everybody else is
top 10 size gyms, high school gyms in the country. 9 of them in the United States.
Yes, that is true. That is a fact.
It's a fact, and they're only getting bigger.
Yep.
So listen, this is what people live for. Okay, sorry, John. I know you're.
You don't have to apologize to me.
I know you're from.
Apologize to whoever tuned us out 15 minutes ago.
You don't get it. It's fine. You live in the land of the Wildcats where they don't play real basketball. This is Indiana, buddy. You need to come back north of the border.
There's a UK fan who has caged up his or her grandmother because they need Jackson Robinson to commit to him.
Did you see this picture? John showed me this right before we started recording.
I did not.
And I've never related to something more in my entire life.
This will be the last thing we do, and then we'll wrap this thing up.
So
I need to find it a second ago. But there's a lady. I'll try to describe it again real quick. Here we go. It's the very first thing out. If you type in Jackson Robinson on Twitter, this is the first thing that pops up. And I'm going to put this on for the YouTube folks to see. It says, Grandma's not getting out until we get an update on Jackson Robinson. And it's this old lady inside of what looks like a giant bird cage.
It's so good. And I mean, it's just further proof that we're all the same. Because I'm sure when Indiana recruits do the same thing, that same picture gets taken from an Indiana household. They were just born on the wrong side of the border, and we hate them for no reason, but we're the same people, and it's so
exactly
awesome. It's so good.
We should next basketball season. We should plan out a couple places we need to go. Hatchet House got to be on one of them.
Got to be
Newcastle.
There's a good episode today, guys. All over the place per usual, but great time. We go off in plenty of different directions, and enjoy it. No matter what it brings us, I guess. So thanks again. If you made it this far, again, you're a true, I hate to say fan of the show. That sounds so pretentious, but if you did make it this far, you're a true out of toucher. And that's not any better than saying a fan, an out of toucher. What's the name of our listeners? We're going to have people have the cool little nicknames.
It's the touchers. Just
wow, what a thing to be.
All you touchers, you come back and touch again next week.
We need to create a line of T-shirts that just says "I'm a toucher."
Wow,
I'm sure that'll go well when worn in public.
Logo right below it. Yeah.
Wow, great episode again. We'll talk to you guys next week. Thanks for listening as always.